Hello, I'm Thane Milhone, Habitat Operations Manager at Jules Undersea Lodge, and welcome to Who's in the Habitat, a program where we interview members of the diving industry to talk about the past, present, and future of diving. Now today I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Alex Brylske in the Habitat, and Alex, a longtime industry member. Many will remember him from back in the day at ProDive in Florida, or from his days at PADI, longtime PADI employee. Now we could talk about a number of things. We could talk about our past working together at PADI. We could talk about your contributions to professional diver training. I mean, Alex was instrumental in developing the Rescue Diver, Dive Master, and Instructor Development courses back in the mid-'80s. We could just talk about diving. But,
and a lot of things we can't talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, from back in the day. What happens at PADI stays at PADI. But instead, what I'd like to talk about is what you're doing in retirement. And now you've formed a company called Ocean Education International. Why don't you tell us a bit about that and what the goals are for
Exactly.
OEI?
Well, the 10 years I spent on faculty at the College of the Florida Keys, we developed a whole series of field-based courses. In fact, you had to be a scuba diver to take 4 of the 7 classes I taught there. And so I realized the year before I retired, there was a lot of information that I was teaching to these undergraduates that would be directly relevant to industry professionals. So I spent the last few months tweaking the curriculum to refocus it a bit. And when I did pull the plug in 2019, I formed Ocean Education International with a mission to make dive tourism an important entity in marine conservation. And the way I initially hope to make that possible is by working with dive professionals and really upping the game in terms of sustainable tourism and how they can, do better by doing good, so to speak. And so the first project out of the breach was a program we call EcoPro, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later. But essentially, that's really it. Right now, I'm concentrating on working with dive industry professionals. I'll expand in a bit to work directly with divers. But right now, I think the emphasis needs to be on professionals. That's really where the emphasis needs to be.
Now, was there a specific moment or an event that kind of put you on this path of marine conservation, coral restoration, or was it a cumulative thing?
Well, that actually goes back much further, because I've been diving for 55 years and spent 18 of those pretty much devoted in the diving industry. And from around the mid to late 70s through about the beginning of the 90s, I just watched coral reefs continue to swirl around the toilet, degrading. And it was very frustrating, because coral reefs really defined my life. My first dive in the Keys here in 1968 on Sombrero Reef really put me on the path to doing something ocean-oriented, and it was the dive industry initially. As I got more and more frustrated and wanted to make a contribution from a conservation standpoint, I realized that I had no credentials or background to do that. So I went back to school, got another master's degree and a PhD to at least have the background and credibility to work in that field, and worked with Project Aware for a while, the Coral Reef Alliance. But then the real turning point was in 2009. I had an opportunity to join a very unique program at Florida Keys Community College and help with what they have there as an associate in science degree in marine environmental technology. And that really gave me the palette to create programming, field-oriented, practical programming on all aspects of coral reefs, from the conservation, biology, ecology, restoration, assessment. And I even had an opportunity to create a unique course called Marine Ecology for Tourism Professionals. And in that, we developed curriculum focusing on sustainability and that. And so I had all this toolkit, and when I retired, I decided to kind of pull it together in a way that would be relevant to dive industry professionals. And to make a long story short, that became EcoPro.
Yeah. Now, you've recently released an online course titled Cities Under the Sea, An Introduction to Coral Reef Ecology. And I'm going to have a link to that in the description for this video. Now, this is a free 3-part course. Why don't you give us an overview of the course and an idea of why you're putting it out there for free?
Well, one of the real deficits I think we have in training dive professionals is they really don't have the knowledge base, I believe, with regard to reef ecology. to connect their customers. We understand a really fantastic experience for a diver is one where they feel safe, they have fun, and they are connected. Now, the instructor training process and all of the diver certification, we certainly do a good job in terms of the safety. And most professionals figure out how to make sure their clients have fun. Where we really fall down is this issue of connected. And what I mean by connected, to really feel something special, even inspired about the environment. To do that, there's a certain requisite amount of information, which by and large, unless an instructor takes it on themselves to learn that or earn the degree, they don't have. And B, it's not just the knowledge, it's also the way it's conveyed. One of the big points in my course is making the transition from being educators to interpreters, to not just to train, but to inspire. And so what I needed was a core curriculum in coral reef ecology, and with all of the really good learning-based tools, it made sense. It's hosted on Thinkific. And it's a 3-part course. The first part is just on it's entitled How Reefs Work. So it's the general ecology. And I emphasize it's not a critter ID program. It's the ecology of coral reefs. In section 2, we transition to a discussion of reef fishes, reef fish ecology. And then the third section is on what's wrong with reefs. And it goes through the whole litany of problems with regard to land-based stresses, ocean-based stresses, and then global threats. And then we conclude the course with some practical steps and strategies people can take to make a difference, to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So it was a pretty significant undertaking, and it is free.
Yeah.
Anyone's certainly welcome to enroll. It's 17 lessons. Probably takes about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours.
Now, that curriculum is used as part of your hands-on in-person programs, the Coral Reef Ecology program and the EcoPro program. So now go ahead and give us more detail on what you're doing with those programs.
Right. Well, the online program is, as I said, it's the knowledge base that I believe dive professionals need. And so they show up, hopefully having taken that course, and so we can kind of hit the ground running. The other application for that course is in another consumer or diver level program, as you said, called Coral Reef Ecology for Divers. But it's the same thing. They come armed with that background material, and then the face-to-face portion actually takes them through a coral reef assessment program called Reef Check. Reef Check has been around for a long, long time, since 1997. It was designed specifically for divers, for non-specialists, and it's really good in that they learn some basic scientific diving techniques, various types of surveys, point intercept, transects, but they also learn how to characterize the sea bottom. They learn how to look at the invertebrate community and what indications of health they should be observing to say, hey, this reef looks healthy or not. And then we spend some time with the fish community. So at the end of the course, the data that they take during the program, we just put that into a spreadsheet program, and up pops what we did that week, and we can make a reasonably objective assessment as to what was the health condition of the reef that we assessed. And it really changes the way people look at coral reefs, and it really sensitizes them to more than the pretty fish.
Yeah. So how important is it to get the dive centers and the professionals involved in this mission?
Well, I think our inventory for the dive industry is coral reefs, and if you think otherwise, you don't really understand what this industry is about. Because even if people are trained in colder regions, most diving is done on coral reefs, and most people want to go to coral reefs. So no reefs, no diving. That's a fundamentally important concept we need to get across to professionals. So to really do the job and create, or rather take what we hope are enthusiastic customers and make them environmental advocates. That's really what we want to do. We want people coming away from the diving experience who not only had fun and were inspired, but they want to go do something about it. And they need certain skills and attitudes in order to accomplish that. And no matter what course I teach, that's always the end objective. It's just a matter of, is it geared toward a professional or is it geared to a recreational diver?
Now, you've recently been named the Director of Education for Reef Smart Guides. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about Reef Smart Guides and what they're about?
Reef Smart Guides has been around a while, and if you think about Lonely Planet, they've taken the Lonely Planet model and applied it to dive destinations. There are currently guides to, if I can remember off the top of my head, Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Cayman, Bonaire, Barbados, the Keys. It's currently in the works. In fact, it'll be down here pretty soon to finish up that book. And so they've published these comprehensive guides complete with maps of dive sites, but not just how to. They also get into a lot of interesting aspects of the science and the culture. Mm-hmm. And I've known one of the principals, Ian Popel, for probably 15 years, and he's a marine scientist himself, and has wanted to get more into the educational component, particularly education to dive resorts. Mm-hmm. And to convey to resorts, give them the tools to improve their sustainability and profitability as well, but also to make sure their staff has the background and the skills to do what I've said before, to really inspire people. And so my mission will be to expand what they call resort services, and equally important to me, they're going to publish my upcoming book, Beneath the Blue Planet. And so it will be the first in the educational series of the Reef Smart Guide program. So we're really looking forward to that, because it's going to be the first product, meaning there will be other follow-up guides that are geared to the specific environment, not just the location. Right. So it's really exciting. I'm really enthusiastic about moving forward. Congratulations on that one.
So you also sit on the advisory board for Reef Renewal. What's their mission and how's that going?
Well, I met Ken Niedermeyer back in 2008. I went through one of his seminars to do an article for Dive Training Magazine, and we hit it off pretty well. And as it happened, when I joined the faculty at the college, that relationship got much closer, and I worked with him while he was with the Coral Restoration Foundation. He moved in a different direction and formed Reef Renewal, and I kind of followed him. Yeah. And so they asked me to essentially serve as educational advisor, or actually chair of their committee. And I'm just going to help them with educational projects. They're going to be doing some videos and online things to kind of get the word out. They've done a wonderful job in terms of creating a technology. Now it's time to get the word out to what's being done and what needs to be done.
Sure. Now, you're in Key Largo for Reef Fest 2021. What's that all about? What role are you playing?
Well, I was honored about a year or so ago to be asked to be on the board of directors for Reef Environmental Education Foundation. I've known Ned and Deloach and Anna for a long time, and Paul as well. And there are two major functions or events that Reef sponsors. One is this Reef Fest, which is basically an opportunity to bring like-minded people, Reef volunteers and others, together for some fun. There are daytime activities, dive, snorkel, kayaking, etc. And then the afternoons, there are a range of educational programs. And then in the evenings, there are the inevitable get-togethers afterwards. So it's just a matter of explaining and providing a public venue for what Reef does. And then there's another program they do in San Diego in March. So it's been really interesting to be involved with Reef. They really have set the standard for citizen science and diving, and I'm lucky and thankful to be involved.
Yeah. Now, I almost hate to ask, but you're on the front line, so what's the outlook? What do you see as far as the future of our coral reefs, and what do we got to do right now to make a difference?
Well, there's some serious issues. Unequivocally, the single biggest problem is the fact that we have, in essence, polluted the atmosphere with carbon dioxide. And with regard to the ocean, it not only warms the atmosphere, therefore the ocean, but unlike CO2 in the atmosphere, when it goes into the ocean, it goes through a chemical transition, acidifying the ocean. And so it's a double whammy for the ocean. But frankly, if we do nothing but try to reduce CO2, which we have to do, there's no question, reefs still aren't in good shape. And so we need to do enough. We need to take the things that we can control, such as nutrient pollution, overfishing, coastal base runoff, anything that's nasty for the reef, reduce that as much as possible, and kind of give them a chance so that they can at least survive while we take care of the global issue. So the resilience of coral reefs is really, really up. And there's a lot of interesting things going on with regard to restoration, understanding the microbiology of corals and their the symbionts that live within them. So there's a lot of really good work done. It's just a matter of timing, or can we get to the finish line before reefs are finished? I hope we can.
Yeah, no, I saw an interesting discussion just recently. Like, okay, hey, great, we're learning how to grow corals and so on and so forth. But if we don't solve the root of the problem, aren't we just putting corals? But I think the response was, well, yes, but we're going a little further than that. We're looking at what type of corals survive in best in what environment, and we're choosing the hardiest of corals and starting to use science to kind of see what corals are going to do the best job. So I think that's encouraging.
Yeah, frankly, early on in the restoration field, a lot of scientists were really opposed to it because they thought it was stealing resources that could be better spent. And now that we've begun to realize just how precipitous the decline is, the scientific consensus is coming around that we need to do both. We absolutely positively have to pull some of the CO2 out of the atmosphere, reduce what we're putting into it, but at the same time, reefs are in such atrocious shape, we need to be looking at innovative ways to give them a push. And in fact, what's happening in the restoration realm is we're kind of moving from the take this piece of coral and plant it over here, which is enormously time consuming and really tough to scale up, to assisting corals with better sexual reproduction by capturing their gametes, their eggs and sperm, and at the same time trying to literally assist the evolution of corals by subjecting them, by stressing them essentially, and really kind of toughing them up, putting them through a workout. And so that all of these activities are happening, internationally, and that's why I think there is some hope, and more so than I think at least I had a few years ago. There's a lot of good minds. Finally, some money being spent. The stony coral tissue disease issue really was a wake-up call for the broader scientific and resource management community. So there's money being put into this now, finally.
Well, that's good to hear. And at this point, thanks for taking some time to come down into the habitat.
Anytime I can come down here. This place is just absolutely amazing. I mean, I was like most folks, divers my age, I was inspired by Sea Hunt, but Cousteau came along a little bit later in the 60s, and I was a kid during the Sea Lab project with the U.S. Navy, and so this was kind of a fantasy to be able to be in a facility like this, and I thank you and Jan for the opportunity.
Well, I think I can speak for Jan, in saying that we really look, however much time, the habitat has left in terms of function, we really look to use it to spread the message of, not only coral restoration, but ocean restoration as a whole, and, utilize this platform to help get the word out, because certainly, this has a history of marine science and marine exploration, and we want to use that to the best of our abilities to, promote those two avenues going forward. So thanks for spending some time.
Exactly. I think folks don't realize that most people on Earth will never see a coral reef. And so the most important thing we can do is make sure that as many people as possible see this resource. And then it's a matter of, turning passion into purpose. It's not rocket science. We know how to move forward. You just need to have the will to do it.
Well, I know you're on Facebook, so people can track you down that way. What's the website address?
OceanEducationInternational.com.
Well, that's pretty simple.
So feel free to get in touch.
Yeah, and we'll have those links in the description as well. All right. Well, thanks again, Alex.
Thanks,
Okay.
That went well.